The gang suited up in the airlock chamber, their bulky spacesuits feeling heavier than ever as they prepared to step outside into the vast, silent abyss of space. The station's backup systems still flickered erratically, leaving their surroundings bathed in a haunting red glow. Beyond the reinforced glass of the airlock door, the black void stretched infinitely, punctuated only by the distant twinkle of stars. Shaggy fidgeted nervously in his suit. I don't know about you guys, but stepping outside a haunted space station into the infinite darkness of space? Worst idea ever. Scooby whined, his tail tucked between his legs. Right. Velma double-checked the oxygen levels on her suit. The external communications array is just beyond the central hub. If the entity came through a signal, that's where we'll find traces of it. Dr. Carter adjusted her helmet. We don't have long out there. Stay close and keep comms open at all times. Fred nodded, placing his gloved hand on the airlock control. All right, let's do this. With a hiss, the airlock depressurized and the doors slowly slid open. Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. As they stepped onto the outer hull of the station, the difference was immediate. There was no sound, no hum of the station, no distant whispers, nothing. Only the cold, vast emptiness surrounding them. Each step felt surreal as their magnetic boots clanked against the metal surface, keeping them anchored to the station. Fred took the lead, scanning the area ahead. The communications array loomed above them, a web of massive satellite dishes and transmission towers that extended into space like spindly fingers. Velma activated her scanner. I'm picking up residual energy patterns. There's definitely something here. Daphne glanced over her shoulder. I don't like this. It feels like we're being watched. Then, the lights flickered across the station's hull. A shadow passed over them, something moving where nothing should be. Shaggy froze. Did you see that? Scooby trembled, pressing against Shaggy. Raggy, I don't want to float away. Fred turned sharply. Stay together. Whatever it is, it's... The signal cut out. One by one, the gang suit radios crackled with harsh static, their voices distorting before turning into deep, mechanical whispers. The void, the void, the void. Daphne's breathing hitched. Guys, we're not alone. Suddenly, the shadows moved. From behind one of the satellite arrays, a twisting, amorphous shape unfolded black as the void itself, its surface shimmering like liquid metal. It had no solid form, shifting erratically, its shape constantly reforming as if struggling to maintain an identity. Then it lunged. Fred barely had time to shove Velma aside before the entity struck the hull, moving with terrifying speed. An unnatural force pulled at them, yanking them toward the darkness. The gang clung desperately to the station's surface as their magnetic boots barely held against the force, trying to drag them into space. Shaggy screamed. Loik, it's trying to pull us into the void. Scooby clung to a railing. Hold on. Dr. Carter fought against the force, her visor fogging up. It's alive. It's trying to absorb us. Velma struggled to reach her scanner. This thing isn't just a transmission. It's the signal itself. Fred gritted his teeth. Then we cut it off. With all his strength, he reached for the emergency power override near the satellite array. If he could shut down the communications relay, he could sever whatever link this entity had to the station. But the entity saw what he was doing. It twisted violently, letting out a deep, guttural hiss that vibrated through the very fabric of space. The force pulling them intensified. Fred's gloved hand slammed the override switch. A blinding pulse of energy surged from the array, illuminating the entire hull. The entity let out a deafening screech, its body splintering apart like shattered glass before dissolving into a black mist. Then, it was gone. The force vanished. The gang collapsed against the hull, panting inside their helmets. Velma stared at her readings. The signal is It's gone. Daphne looked around in disbelief. Did we just destroy it? Dr. Carter's voice came through the radio. No, we didn't destroy it. They turned to her, confused. She pointed toward the distant blackness of space. We just sent it back. The gang followed her gaze. In the endless abyss beyond the station, the stars flickered oddly, as if something unseen still lingered just beyond the veil of reality. Fred exhaled. Let's get back inside. As they made their way back to the airlock, the faintest whisper crackled through their radios one last time. We will return. And then, silence. The gang stepped back into the airlock, the doors sealing shut behind them. For now, the station was safe. The gang stumbled into the airlock, their breaths coming fast and ragged as the doors sealed shut behind them. The weight of what had just happened pressed against them. They had come face to face with something beyond explanation. Velma leaned against the wall, catching her breath. That was not just a signal. Dr. Carter removed her helmet, her eyes still wide with shock. No, it wasn't. That thing. It wasn't just trying to communicate. It was trying to take over. Fred unlatched his suit, shaking his head, and it almost succeeded. Daphne glanced at the control panel. We shut down the communications array. Does that mean it's gone for good? Velma hesitated. I don't know. The entity wasn't just living in the signal, it was the signal. But now that the transmission source is cut off, we might have just trapped it outside. Or delayed it. A heavy silence fell over them. Shaggy gulped. Like, I don't want to hear the word delayed. That makes it sound like it's coming back. Scooby nodded frantically. Oh, right. Fred straightened. Then we need to make sure it never does. The gang reconvened in the main control room, where the station's eye echo flickered weakly on the main screen. The damage from the entity's interference was evident. Several systems remained in critical condition, and some modules were still without power. Velma tapped on the console. Echo, are you operational? The ice-glowing blue eye pulsed, but its voice came through in a distorted, glitchy tone. Error. Data corruption. Unknown entity detected. Fred turned to Dr. Carter. If Eco is still compromised, we can't be sure the entity is really gone. Dr. Carter ran a diagnostic. We need a full system purge. If any traces of the entity remain in Echo's memory, it could reassemble itself. Daphne frowned. You mean wipe the A? Dr. Carter nodded grimly. We don't have a choice. Velma hesitated. Echo is the only thing maintaining what's left of the station's automated functions. If we wipe it, we'll have to manually operate everything. Fred set his jaw. Better that than risking another attack. Shaggy raised his hand. Like, just checking if Echo is wiped, does that mean we still get to go home? Dr. Carter smirked slightly. The emergency escape pods are on an independent system. We'll be fine. Scooby wagged his tail. Relieved. With the decision made, Velma typed in the override command, initiating the system purge. The eye screen flickered violently as the corrupted data was erased, the entity's last remaining fragments vanishing from the station's core. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the station's lights steadied, the chaotic interference disappearing. The feeling of something watching them finally faded. Fred exhaled. It's done. Dr. Carter sat back. We'll send a full report to ground control. But I have a feeling no one will ever believe what really happened here. Daphne smirked. That's usually how these mysteries go. Velma adjusted her glasses. Well, at least this time, the culprit wasn't just a guy in a mask. Shaggy shuddered. Like, I wish it was just a guy in a mask. Scooby nodded. All right, no more space ghosts. With the station stabilized, the gang boarded the escape pod, strapping in for the return trip home. Through the window, the Orion space station grew smaller as they drifted toward Earth, the infinite blackness of space stretching beyond them. Daphne sighed. So, what do we tell people when they ask what happened up here? Fred smirked. That we solved another mystery, just in zero gravity. Velma added, and that sometimes the unknown should stay unknown. Shaggy shuddered. I vote we stick to Earth mysteries from now on. Scooby chuckled. Right, no more aliens. The gang laughed as the pod descended into Earth's atmosphere, their latest adventure behind them. But far above, where no one could hear, the void stirred once more. And in the depths of the blackness, a faint whisper remained. We will return.